You guys in the back? Good? All right. So we're going to see if we can get this to click. It's clicking over there, but not up here. It's pushing it out. Hey, at least the lights are on, right? All right, good. So you guys, thanks for being here. Al, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting us out. And this is going to be a lively engagement because it's going to be interactive. Do you guys know what 45 seconds means? What that's all about? Maybe you have any ideas and guesses? It's first impressions. It's how long it takes to make decisions that can change your life. And one of the things that happened for me about a year and a half ago, I got a call from a friend of mine, and he said, hey, I've got a trip that's coming up. Are you interested in going and hanging out with the gorillas in Uganda? And I said, sure. That's what you look like when 400-pound alpha is playing with the tree next to you. And it had just walked through us. So when you're standing there, they say, don't go to the animal. And the animal comes to you and just pushes you aside. It kind of changes your world perspective. It took me less than 45 seconds to say yes when I was asked to go on this trip. And there's a power in the ability to decide. You guys are about to see an example of that and how it can change your life. So in reality, this is actually what they look like when you're right next to them. So I was about this far away, just looking at them, and they actually just kind of look at you. The reason I bring this up is because the reason for me to spend time and energy making money, creating financial abundance is to have experiences. It's not to have a pile of gold. It's not to have a pile of Ferraris or guns or whatever it is that you guys that we like. I've had all those things. This is what makes life worthwhile and sharing those experiences with people. So this is something else that you see in Africa. You guys know what this is? Gold. And it turns into that. So y'all know that that's a U.S. eagle. Anybody know how much that's worth? So that's a 1 ounce eagle. So $1,300, $1,400. So as an example, this is a 1/4 ounce gold eagle. You guys can do the math. Does anybody want to give me $100 for this? Anybody want to give me $100?
Yeah.
$100?
Yeah.
I mean, it's $100. It's a 1/4 ounce gold eagle.
Yes.
$100? $100. I got a 1/4 ounce gold eagle sitting right here. Anybody want to give me $100 for this? Thank you. Congratulations. Give him a hand. Okay, so I lied. It wasn't 45 seconds. It was 1 minute and 15 seconds. That's how long it took. So that is worth almost $400. $100 turned into $400 in 1 minute and 15 seconds. How long does it take to make 200% or 300%? A minute. So it's an example of us maybe changing our context around how long things take and whether we should stay sitting or go do something. Because a lot of you were excited about the idea, but didn't want to get out of your seat. Guess where you make money? Get it out of your seat. So this is an opportunity for you to learn something, and we're going to have an opportunity for you guys to get out of your seats mentally and emotionally here right now. So this is kind of what most of you look like. I was watching, and it was frozen. And then that was kind of a little bit, or shirt. And then the rest of y'all are trying to So I'm going to teach you how to shift into a place where you pop up out of your seat and you go for it. The reason that you're not necessarily doing the getting up part is because there's a fear. There's a fear of judgment, there's a fear of making a mistake. We're taught all this stuff, and so we stay in this state of paralysis and fear. And it's because we're trained that way and because we're taught to be a certain way in our physiology. So everybody do something with me right now. Everybody take a deep breath in and hold it for 3 seconds. So everybody breathe in. And let it out. Okay, so let me show you what the room looked like just now. This is how we breathe. It's how we constantly move. And what's happening is we're putting the breath into our lungs and it's shifting us into a sympathetic state of fight or flight. Fight or flight keeps us also frozen, like the guy, like y'all in your seats. It's how we naturally are operating instead of being in a parasympathetic state, which is the rest and relaxation state. Rest and relaxation is where you see things, it's where you take action because you're aware and you're not tense. So we have to change something. I'm going to teach you how to breathe and stay in that rest and relaxation. It's called the Profitability Zone that I just made up right now. So what I'm going to do is I want you guys to all look for a straw that was on your seat. Everybody get your straw and pull it out of the plastic. If you don't have one, raise your hand right now. Okay, we make sure. Make sure you guys all have one. This may change your life. There should be one on every seat. So if there's one next to you that's available, can you hold it up? Okay, anybody that needs one, just make sure you guys cooperative, sharing. Anybody else need one? You have one? Okay, everybody pull them out of the cases. So I did this in Dallas last year, and I had plastic straws. So you guys are going to appreciate this because it might be the same thing here, but the plastic straws, I had a gal in the audience that put her arms over her chest, and she said, I said, yes, we just started. She said, you're killing the oceans. I said, we're in Dallas. We need to care about the oceans here. I think she moved over from LA. So I thought I was safe in Dallas. I wasn't. So what I did is I said, all right, we're not going to kill the oceans. We're going to give you guys, we're going to upgrade and boost the game. We're going to create some metal straws. So we're saving the oceans and we're making some money. You can also take this home. So these are renewable, reusable. So please don't just leave them behind. They'll have to use them for the next audience. These are brand new. You guys are safe. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to have that straw. We're going to use it to breathe. I'll explain why. See, there's two things that are going to happen. We're going to breathe by pushing our chest down, and we're going to breathe we're going to hold the straw in our mouth. We're going to breathe into our stomach. So it's going to look like in through the nose, out through the straw, stomach is going out. So it's going to look ridiculous. So we're going to breathe in. And then breathe out through the straw and keep our stomach out. Again, breathe in through your nose, stomach out. Hold it. And then breathe out through the straw and keep your stomach out. One more time, in through your nose. Stomach out. And breathe out through the straw. You guys can drop your straws. So do you feel the shift in the room? It's called dropping into presence. Everybody look at your straw and see what it says. Power in the presence. You can't possibly make good investments if you're not present. Partially because you're going to miss most of them, and the other part is you're going to sit still when you actually do see them. This exercise is meant to give you a tool you can walk away from here and actually have more power in everything you do because you're present. This is the problem if you're not present. You bad tattoos. And this is actually really important for me personally, I'm going to share a story about this with you guys. This is my dad. He actually grew up across the river in the Bronx. This was just before he passed away 5 years ago. And we were having the last conversation. And he looked at me, and he only had a few weeks left because he was stage 4, and he looked at me and said, you know, I had so many things that I wanted to do. And that was kind of it. That was the end of the conversation, and it killed me because you know what I was feeling through him? Regret. When I see that tattoo, it's funny and it breaks my heart because that was my own dad. It was because he didn't get up out of his chair and go after the things that mattered. He talked about doing things, but he didn't really do them. You guys are here. You're not somewhere else. You took a step doing something, and that's awesome, and it's the first thing. And then you got to keep taking those steps so that you don't wake up one day and have a conversation with somebody that matters and say those words that will break them. I'm going to show you some ways that you can actually get to the end of your life and go, holy shit, that was amazing. Because that's the conversation I want to have, and I hope you guys want to have at the end too, not, damn, I missed out. Anybody ever seen this number before? Ready? Where'd y'all see it?
Outliers.
Outliers. Yeah. So it became famous with Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, and it's about 10,000 hours. And it has to do with something called mastery. So there's 2 things in my life that I've spent 10,000 or more hours with. The first one was martial arts. Al mentioned that I started Yokido. That's what happens after you spend 10 or 20,000 hours in martial arts. You sort of like give birth to something. So this is me doing a demo, and it's kind of a fun, this is what 10,000 hours look like. So the great thing is that since you grabbed the gold, we're going to do a little demo. Just kidding. And it's like you see the blood go from the top of the all guys are gone. Hey, the blood! Get my gold back. This is the other thing that I spent 10,000 plus hours with. And there's no get rich fast in anything in real estate or any other thing. There's time and energy and money and pain. A lot of aspirin. This was what my life looked like in 2006, 2007. So I spent about 6 years building a pretty good portfolio. I was in a lot of rooms learning from guys like Gino and some of the people you're going to listen to, Buck and Dave Zook, and some really smart people. And so I got off my chair, went and did things. This is what I built. It was pretty cool. That was my Ferrari. So it was a lot of fun. It took me a week to get arrested in my Christmas Eve because I thought I was Will Smith. I saw this in Bad Boys 2, so I decided I'm going to be Will Smith, so I got in the car. The cop didn't think it was very funny. So it was very cool. And then 2008 happened. Anybody have a little meltdown in 2008? Did we lose $1 or $2 or 20 million? That was what happened to me. And it's the reason I bring this up is because I thought, all right, that's cool. I still have my car. But I didn't have my car for very long, and everything really changed. It changed because I realized the previous why I had was all about the cars and the money. And I didn't have anything deeper driving me. It was just about the stuff. So a big shift happened over a few years where I reinvented it. Best friend and I wrote a book called Reinvented Life, and we talked about that whole transition. And so for many of you, it seems like you haven't lost $20 million or lost everything. Some of you have. I'm going to encourage you and invite you to not do that. It hurts a lot. And the way that you help avoid doing that is making sure that what you're doing isn't just about the stuff, that it's about something different. This is why we do what we do now. David and I, my partner David, came out from Alabama to be with you guys. Give a hand for being here. So we're how to break you out of your shackles. Because we all have shackles. The problem is we're putting them on ourselves. We just don't know how to get them off. And so our job and our mission is really that. The money becomes a side effect of it, and a lot of times it's not about the money. It's literally just giving somebody an idea. And so that's what we're doing. The thing that we're often afraid of taking action, what we really should be afraid of is that. So part of the shackles are the tax shackles. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how to make sure that that number is, do you know what that number is? Anybody have an idea? That's the average amount of your wealth you're going to give to the IRS over your life. Anybody a little bit nauseous? It's disgusting, but how's that number? So if we're going to get to a different number, we've got to think differently, and then if we're going to think differently, we might as well invest differently. So that's where I'm going to teach you about something called the eQRP. This is something that we created out of the tax code, and now I've got my slides going on autopilot. This is where things take over, the power goes out, things happen, you have to adapt. So the eQRP is something, it's called the Enhanced Qualified Retirement Plan. And it's, Jim earlier talked about qualified plans, and there's a lot of crappy plans because there's a lot of plans. Qualified plans means anything like 401ks, 403bs, 457s, all these things that have tax advantages. The reason that they are generally terrible is because you're stuck and you just sort of hope it works out. Like you give your money to somebody and you say, hey, cool, I'm going to hope this works in 20 or 30 or 40 years. There's money there. So you take this big inhale of opium and you wait. And then you wake up and you're like, shit, there's no money there. You know where the money went? It went to the freaking Wall Street advisor. It was basically their own annuity. You were their annuity. You were paying them over 30 or 40 years. But the problem is it doesn't work except for them. The eQRP gives you opportunities to drive the best vehicle in retirement planning because it gives you control. There's a reason that that this is a kind of a hot topic these days. That's how much money is sitting in these accounts. It's a lot. A lot of you, who has any type of retirement account, IRA, 401k, anything? Most people. That's our default, is to have something like that. A lot of you are asking why you haven't heard of this, probably. It's because the system is set up for Leonardo DiCaprio to keep you trapped. It's because of fees and control. We work with a lot of custodians and a lot of trustees when we're moving assets around, and it's fascinating. I think it kind of blew David's mind when he became a part of this company, how ridiculous these companies are at keeping money stuck. They don't think that it's your money. Many of these institutions think you're too stupid. They think that you're too dumb and that you should not have your money. Now that's a broad generalization, but I can tell you that's most of what we encounter. And it's scary because it is your money. And it's people you know, it's their money. So we have to fight to break it out of like retirement jail. And we do that with the eQRP. The eQRP gives you an opportunity to have checkbook control of your actual retirement money, where you're the trustee of the money. You get to invest in deals, you get to invest in opportunities that you want to invest in. You're not paying investment fees to have somebody look at your money and golf while you're paying for it. You're protected from things like lawsuits. You're more likely to have a legal bill in this country than a health bill that bankrupts you. It's kind of becoming the way of America where we sue our way into wealth. This protects those monies. There's a $50,000 credit line built into this. So, a funny story about that in a minute, but you have the ability to borrow anytime you want. You write yourself a check, $50,000. And you can use debt. Who's ever tried to use an IRA that was at like Schwab and buy real estate with it? Okay, a few people. It's really, really challenging to do anything when you don't have control. And the problem is, if you actually do get to do it, you're going to get killed with something called UBIT tax. I'm going to get into that in a second. But before we jump over slides, stop. we're going to talk about a few other of the options that you have. You can do almost anything. Real estate flips, syndications, you can buy gold, you can be the bank, you can lend this money out. You can do things globally. We have a lot of people that are investing in coffee and cacao in Central and South America. People are buying cryptocurrency. And one of the problems with crypto, there was a big explosion of it, and the problem was people were making a ton of money and they were going to pay ordinary income tax on it. So this is a way to invest if you like crypto, and a way to do it without being taxed. Like zero, like none. That's a better number than 70%. Most of you guys and most people you know are probably going to be more likely to have invested with self-directed IRAs if they're doing alternatives than an eQRP or any type of individual 401k. Because there's more money in IRAs and there's still custodian fees, most people are still there because that's what they've been told, they've been marketed to. I'll give you some of the reasons why you're going to want to run away from your self-directed IRA and tell all your friends to get out of them. Self-directed IRAs are slow. There's custodians involved. They're taxed. You can only put $6,000 a year in. You cannot put money into a Roth self-directed IRA if you make too much money. These are all limiters. None of those apply in the eQRP. It's fast, it's furious, there's no tax from debt. So you can buy a piece of property with this retirement account, have it 90% leverage, make a ton of money and pay no UBIT tax. Don't worry if that doesn't make any sense. I'll give you an example. And you can use it, you can have a Roth. So when Jim was talking about qualified plans and shifting, anybody know who Tom Wheelwright is? Anybody heard? Tax-Free Wealth, great book, one of the Rich Dad Advisors. He talks about not putting a tax shelter in a tax shelter, and he talks about why it would be stupid to have things like real estate inside a retirement account. It's because you're shifting the capital gains into ordinary income, and that's a bad idea. So what we're going to really focus on is the Roth piece, and that was touched on, and to me that's the only reason that you really want to get your money into something like a retirement account, because of the Roth. Now there's legislation right now that's going to change some of this stuff around the 401ks a little bit, and my guess is it will shift. Right now, the Roth is available. Who doesn't know what a Roth is? Smart group. So the Roth is going to be the most powerful thing because you're not going to care whether tax rates are 93% in 10 or 20 years. They can be 93% because you're going to be in a zero tax environment. This is a big deal. Who has kids here? Okay, little bonus. Because of the Tax Reform Act, the tax brackets are from 0 to 12,000, there's no tax. Here's how that can apply to you if you have kids, or you know somebody with kids. As an entrepreneur, you have a business, you make money. You're going, I don't want to pay taxes on it. If you do that, you spend the money. Or you find ways to take that income down. One way to do it is to hire your children, pay them $12,000 a year. That reduces that income. What do you do with $12,000? You can put it into a plan. It can be into a Roth plan. So you reduce your income by $12,000, it goes to them. Now they have $12,000 in their account. You're still running it, and it grows tax-free. It's a way for you guys to start shifting income and benefiting your kids and have a lot of power and control going into a zero tax rate environment. This is a big, big deal because it's kind of a freebie, and most people have never heard of it. Who knows what a syndication is? Okay, didn't Gino just talk? Isn't that like everybody? All right, so we're going to talk about an example of a syndication because what we have right now is there's a lot of deals that are going on. A lot of people are investing in syndications. Some of you, I'm guessing, probably have some IRA money in syndications right now. And it's a ticking time bomb. And I'm going to show you why and how to fix it. This is also important because some of you are going to go forward and want to invest in real estate projects, different projects, and you need to do it the smart way so you don't get hammered with taxes. This is kind of a typical deal, a $5 million type of syndication with $1 million in cash and say $4 million in debt. Let's say that maybe 5 years later sold, had $500,000 in cash flow, and it was sold for $7 million. A lot of those type of deals that have been floating around and people have been exiting this year, last year, there's $2.5 million in profit. Here's the problem now. A lot of people invested their self-directed IRAs, and See the thing at the bottom left that says UDFI? That's unrelated debt financed income. Because the IRA was used, the IRA holders are writing a check out of the $2.5 million of $560,000 to the government. And they say, wait. This is in my IRA. It's my Roth IRA. Yeah, but UBIT tax got triggered. UBIT is unrelated business income tax. It gets triggered if your IRA uses debt. With an eQRP, it's exempt. This is a huge deal because $560,000 is a choice. It's not an obligation. It's literally, do you want to just give away $500,000? Who wants to keep $500,000? I mean, it's a simple idea. So this is basically what's happening right now, and it's probably the biggest thing that we run into on a day-to-day basis is people that are getting hit with UBIT. It's up to 37% tax on all these profits from the leverage. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. But here's the difference. IRAs versus eQRP. Bottom line is there's $500,000 missing. And the IRA investors get hammered, and they didn't even see it coming. eQRP investors are very happy because they got to keep the entire amount of money. So who's ever flipped a house? You guys ever seen an HD channel? Chip? All right, so here's an example of somebody that flipped a house. I actually had somebody, I think there's a sample of what their experience was. You buy a house for $150,000, we have it for $50,000. You sell it for $300,000, there's gross profit of $100,000. Net profit of $58,000, okay, after your commissions and the fees and closing costs. That's the problem if you use an IRA. This was a client of ours that said, we are selling a house. It's in our IRA. We just got a call from our accountant. And they said, we have to write a check for $20,000 to close this. And I said, no, you don't. Because they converted it into an eQRP, and now they're exempt. $20,000. I mean, it's just a crazy thing, and it's buried in the code, and so people are getting hurt with it because they're using their IRAs. The eQRP is exempt from this thing. We don't know why, but it just is. So here's the problem. Somebody goes, ah, man, I'm already invested. I'm stuck. What's fixable? We move it. We can take an asset. It's called an in-kind rollover. A lot of times people have assets already in their IRAs, and they say, well, I'm stuck, I'm already invested. We just roll it over. We just move the asset. You don't have to sell it, you just move it over. Now it's exempt. Now you can keep all the money. That's better.
Can you move
Right?
shares?
What?
Can you move shares if you own a part of the multifamily? Can you move those?
Great question. The question is, can you move shares? Like if you have a part interest in a multifamily or anything, yes, you can move anything that you want from an IRA into an eQRP. Cash, assets, gold, crypto, coffee beans. All right, so people ask, well, who's qualified? This is a big question because the IRS says it's for business owners. Many times we've heard of things called solo 401ks for an individual. So a business owner, somebody that's out doing business, that's not just a W-2er. If you're a W-2er and you do nothing else, you're not qualified. You have to do something that has the potential of making income. Syndicators that get fees, self-employed people, investors that are out there doing things that are generating income for themselves. W-2 employees that have some type of side hustle. If you have employees, you can do this. That's a limiter for a lot of people, and they say, well, I want to do this, but I have employees. The eQRP allows you to have employees. Your grandmother is qualified. I mean, you hire grandma to be a part of your photography, on your website. I know what this is like, because I was a child model for Sears before we went bankrupt. We probably went bankrupt. But you have the ability to be qualified if you want to do something. The IRS's rule literally says, if you have a business. If you have a lemonade stand, is that a business? Yeah. Right? If you have an online website that has the ability for you to make money, is that a business or not? Okay, it's not that hard. So people oftentimes put the shackles on themselves. Stop doing that. So how do you get money into an eQRP? You can roll over almost anything. IRAs, 401ks, thrift savings plan, government money, 403bs, 457s. You can put almost anything in except for a Roth IRA or an inherited IRA. Those are the two things you can't move over. Anything else, move over. Sometimes you can move over money from a current employer's plan. Most of the time not. It's a case by case. So we just have to see if it's possible by asking. You can also put $56,000 a year in. Compared to an IRA, which is $6,000, this gives you a lot more power and a lot more options. It can be deferred or Roth. So I don't necessarily like, I agree with Jim, I don't want to put money in and have it grow and then turn something that could have been capital gains into ordinary income tax. I like Roth because we're saying no tax. I don't care what the tax rates are, I don't care how they change. One of the things that we see happening with the tax reform in the 401k space right now that was passed by Congress is going to the Senate is that they're grandfathering certain things in. So one of the things that looks like it's going to change, because it basically everybody voted yes, was an inherited IRA. So one of the things that I did with my dad about 15 years ago is we set up a retirement account for him, a Roth account, and I inherited it. And it's called a stretch IRA. Anybody ever heard of a stretch IRA? Basically, it allows you to take you can take it and you can pull pieces of it out for the rest of your life. So, give you an example. I inherit this thing. It's got $10,000 in it. Not a lot of money, but it's a Roth account. So now, I'm obviously not 60 years old, which is the normal age to be pulling money out of a retirement account, but I'm able to pull the money out today, tomorrow, the rest of my life, and I can keep growing it. So I've literally gone into a place because of this planning using the Roth tool that I'm not going to pay taxes ever again. It's sitting there. That's changing in this bill. It's going to change it from a lifetime stretch to 10 years. So it's a little morbid, but if you know somebody that's really old and you want to set up an account, it's called family legacy planning. And it sounds crazy, but I mean, literally, if somebody dies this year, then it's still lifetime. If it's after December 31st, don't speed up Granny. Like that, the idea is. After December 31st, it's 10 years. I don't know how to make an example like good or nice, but it's just these things change. The point is that things are grandfathered. And so if you're using them, the idea is to seed them, to start them, to have something going so that when the rules change, because I think Jim's right, that tax rates are going to change. Who thinks tax rates are going to stay the same the rest of your life? They're going to change. They're likely to go up. There's a big shift. There's a shift from capitalism to socialism. Higher tax rates, more taxes. People like Mitt Romney, who has how much in his IRA? $100 million. He's now a U.S. Senator. What do you think they're going to do when they change the laws? Do you think that they're going to change it for themselves, or are they going to grandfather what's already there? Yeah, grandfathering is going to be a key. So it's about thinking ahead and doing things today that are going to last past the next round of reforms. So this is, I mentioned the credit line. Yeah, quick question?
When you are funding the eQRP, what if some of it is just ordinary, like tax deferred, and some of it's Roth? Do you need to separate those amounts?
Good question. So how do you keep it separate? If you have deferred money and you have Roth money for making contributions, it's two checking accounts. So fairly simple. And yes.
How old is your kid today?
How old? For okay, so I was a 5-year-old child model. So I mean, it's really if they can do something. Usually, children, if they're super young, they don't really have much that they can do to create value except for photography. But as they get older, I mean, kids can now program your computer.
No, I get it. And then what about a SEP account?
A what?
A SEP.
SEP? So, SEP, like SEP, self-employment pension. So it's different. There are different rules. So I don't want to go into the huge weeds and all the retirement accounts, but this is really just a narrow piece. And then The book that you guys have, by the way, does have some of this information, some of the technical nuance inside of it, so you can dig into it if you want, and you'll have the ability to reach out to me too. So, one more question.
I saw that you cannot roll over a Roth, but you put it in under the contribution column.
Correct.
What is the difference? If I have a Roth right now,
Okay.
how do I contribute it?
Okay, so good question. So if you already have a Roth IRA, you can't move it into an eQRP. It has to stay as an IRA. If you have new money that you're going to contribute, that you can put it in, or if you have a traditional 401k or IRA, you can move it in and then convert it to Roth. So there's ways. So unfortunately, Congress changed the rules a couple years ago. You can't unwind a Roth. But one of the interesting things is, a little tidbit, you can take any contributions to a Roth and pull them out at any time. Tax-free, penalty-free. So here's a thought. My suggestion is seed things. So get a Roth in place. At some point, in some fashion, get a Roth in place. I don't care if you have $5,000 in the Roth. Get it in there, get it going, grow it, and then if you want the $5,000 back, take it back out. But at least you've got a tax-free compounding account for the rest of your life. Yes?
What you have for the Roth, what you can't make over a certain amount of money, right?
Great question. So the Roth on income limiters, Roth IRAs have income limiters. You make too much money, you can't do a Roth. With an eQRP, any type of qualified plan under the 401 section, which is 401ks, there is no limit on income. That's why this is better, because you're not shackled. Okay, so there are no limits on income. Give you an example. If you work at a big company like say Amazon and had a 401k plan, they can't say, oh, you can't do this because you make too much money. Because it's part of an employee profit sharing plan, there's no limits on that. Okay. So this is back in 2007 when I was like the coolest. I had one of these things. You guys ever seen a black American Express? It means you have a spending problem. And I was excited about having my spending problem. I mean, I called them and I said, can I qualify? They're like, you spend $1 million a year? Yes, you can have one. I said, perfect. So I got this thing and I was very happy about it. I almost bought the Ferrari on the car just because I could. But there was a situation in 2007, 2008 when things started getting a little shaky and certain companies started falling off the cliff. Companies like American Express and basically every other financial institution that's out there that had lending resources said, we're starting to see losses, and they're trickling, and they're from a certain industry. It happened to be real estate, which I was tagged as a real estate guy. And they said, this is a problem, let's fix it before we have a bigger problem. So I was in Costco. You guys have Costco here? So that's what, when you get toilet paper, this is what it looks like, right? And I was getting a crate of toilet paper, and I'm checking out with my crate of toilet paper. That's probably wondering why I had that much toilet paper, but I didn't. Just me, and I went to check out with my American Express, and they said, sir, your card's been declined. And I said, how could that be? It's a black card. And see, that's me, my name. They said, yeah. I said, what do you mean it's declined? I have an unlimited credit line. They said, call American Express. And I said, well, all right, fine. So I'm all pissed off and, grumpy. And I called American Express and I said, what's going on? They said, you have a balance of $16,000. I said, yeah. I said, why did you decline me? They said, you have a credit limit of $16,000. I said, what are you talking about? They said, your credit limit is now your balance. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. They said, you're in real estate. I said, oh crap. Or not. I mean, because I couldn't get my name right. So I was feeling a little stuck. And the problem is, if you're tagged in a certain place and you're relying on lines of credit, they can be turned off. Who had any type of line of credit turned off in 2008? It's a very unpleasant feeling when all of a sudden you're like, I have no liquidity. So a value in having a plan like this, you've got this pile of cash that you normally wouldn't think of as a resource. You say, I need liquidity, I need to get my toilet paper, whatever it is, I need to make a house payment, whatever. You can write yourself a check for $50,000 or half of your cash anytime you want for any reason, there's no limits, and then you just pay yourself back over 5 years. It's a really valuable resource when American Express tries to cut losses on you. Anybody speak Portuguese? know that, what does that mean?
Keep from that expensive.
Very good. So, there are a lot of ways to get information. You get it from your neighbor, you get it from a random book, you can Google it. The problem is, it's very expensive and life is truly too short to argue with stupid people. So there's a different way, and one of those, who knows who this is? Who thinks that Gary Keller is a pretty smart guy that you should listen to?
Yeah.
Seriously, guys? Read every book he has and listen to him. I mean, there's a reason that Keller Williams is what it is. It's not because he's a dum-dum. And so, one of the things that you want to do is model people. I'm a big fan of not making the same mistake that everybody else makes. My very first book, I wrote for a couple of reasons, called Maverick Mistakes in Real Estate Investing. If you want to see the single-handedly worst looking cover that's ever been designed, it was me on PowerPoint making a book cover. I wrote the book because I wanted to learn from my mistakes and teach them to other people. I also didn't want to make the same damn mistake again. So I wrote them down. Matt, don't get it. It's terrible. It's not even in print. People are just reselling the ones they found at the Goodwill store. So one of the things that can help you that I didn't do until after I lost all this and really lost everything. I was in the Mayo Clinic, dying. I was in there getting poked and prodded. I was in my 20s. That's how much damage I was doing to myself because I had no rules. It was about fast and furious, my life. Now I have rules to protect me from me because our glands take over. We get excited, we get scared, we just like we're all over the place. Deal looks good, we run into it, and we're like, what the hell is that thinking? This is what prevents that. These are my rules. I update them every year. I go back to them when I'm looking at opportunities, deals, investments, partners. I am very, very careful about who gets close to me. All of you guys should do that because you're going to absorb it. Who's heard you become the average of the 5 people around you that Jim Rohn said this years ago? The reason that David and I work so well is because there's a level of integrity and ethics and everything that matters to me. So I absorb David, and this is a good thing. I've had partners where I was absorbing like plutonium. So one of the rules is about the people that are around me. And so I would invite you to be very, very conscious about those people. They are 100% self-responsible. I can tell you there's nobody in my life that's not self-responsible. It's like a deal killer. I don't put more than 5% of my liquidity in anything. I used to be like the guy going red, red, red. You know, it's like I keep going, doubling down and winning, and then the house takes all the money because I'm putting everything in. Now I don't. If something goes wrong, and they always go wrong. In 2007, I had 7 different deals that were all going to net me $1 million each. Within 12 months, I had lost $1 million from 5 of them each. The other 2 went flat. So if I had put 5% of my liquidity into each one of them, I would still be solid, but instead I was bankrupt. The third one is a little intense. Yeah, y'all probably have some of these areas out here. Bulletproof zones, bulletproof vests. So I did a multifamily project in Memphis. Anybody been to Memphis? There's great opportunities there, it's awesome, there's cash flow, and there are some areas like Graceland, which is very, very bad. I didn't know this. I thought, how bad could it be? It's Elvis's neighborhood. So I bought this apartment complex, and I ended up getting this thing, and some copper burglars came in and tore all the copper out of my entire complex while we were rehabbing it. It was $250,000 worth of damage for a few $1,000s of copper. In Memphis, in Whitehaven. So I fought with Lloyd's of London. Anybody heard of Lloyd's of London? It's not fun to fight with a London organization that doesn't really have a location. But I did, and 8 months later, they gave me a little bit of that $250,000, paid my attorney, and I had a $150,000 loss. Thinking, okay, I learned my lesson. 6 months later, the bandits were back. They tore the copper out again, and they shot my armed guard and killed her. I don't invest in places that require bulletproof vests because I paid a price there. You know how much it weighs on you when you have somebody that dies protecting your property? Died. This is, I mean, there are reasons that we have rules. Some of those rules come from experiences that are brutal. So if you don't have rules, please create some rules, and if you don't know where to start, just borrow mine. It will save you from some of the trauma and drama and carnage that goes along with creating wealth. Because there is no like 4-hour hack into wealth, Tim Ferriss. It takes time. I love Tim, by the way. It takes energy, it takes time. There is pain involved. There's a lot of aspirin in this business. This is the reason that we're doing what we're doing, and for a lot of you, it's important to you. It might be your #1 concern. It sure as heck is the #1 concern for many of the people that you are around, is that we're going to run out of money before we run out of years. When my dad got sick, one of the things that he started getting really nervous around was running out of resources because he was having to pay for a lot. He had government, military, insurance, but he was running out of resources for other things he had to do. And because he didn't have his financial house in order, I think he said, I'm out. And he tapped out earlier. I think I lost my dad earlier because we ran out of money. I think I would have had him for probably 6 or 12 more months. This is a really compelling why to get your shit straight so that you're around longer for your family and for the people that care about you, and you can help other people to be around you. I wish I had a little longer, but I don't. Now I can teach that and share, and maybe you guys can be better than we did. Ultimately, this is what we're all trying to do in a certain way. Now we're not going to breathe that way anymore, but we all want to matter. We want to matter to other people. We kind of want to be a little bit of a superhero sometimes and help people. Sometimes we don't know how to do that. You guys have a copy of the book, and this is the Cliff Notes. Because I know hardly anybody reads anymore. I'm going to have to create a YouTube video on the book just to get people to pay attention. This would give you an opportunity to share this with people. Or you can sum up the book if you want to rehash this and go, okay, what was that all about? There's a lot of stuff. It'll literally give you a way to understand all the stuff that I just threw at you, and maybe give you some ideas so that you don't have bad tattoos. I've got a little bit of time for some questions, but before I do that, I really do want to say thank you guys for your attention. The level of presence in here is kind of, it's almost hard to take. You guys are incredibly present. So thank you for that. I honor and respect and love you for being here and for giving me your attention. I'm here all day, and I'm definitely open. If you have some questions, I'm happy to answer those. David can also help out. Anybody have any questions before we wrap up? Anybody? Yes, sir.
56,000 contribution in eQRP. Is tax deductible?
Yeah, so the contribution is $56,000 maximum if you're less than age 50. If you're over age 50, it's $62,000 per person. It can be tax deductible or it can be Roth. So if there's a couple, it can potentially be up to $124,000 per year. And it can be, you can cut it up any way you want. It's based on how much income you have to contribute. So there are rules around that, but that's the maximum. Yes?
Where would you set up one of these?
So the question is, where would you set up one of these? So that's what we do. That's our primary business, is setting up eQRPs. And then once they're set up, you have a checkbook. You're going to have your money in, and then you literally invest. So
how does this help? What is the process entailed in avoiding UBIT with this?
The question is, what's the process in avoiding UBIT with this? You do it.
Okay, but I guess right now we have a lot of investors who, UBIT is a big concern and something that I think a lot of people may have no idea about it. But to your point, even if you're already in, you can, for future years, put it, take your self-directed IRA and move it into a store.
Correct.
Okay.
So the question is, a lot of people are dealing with UBIT. It's hitting people they didn't know it was coming. Nobody really told them about it. It really doesn't hit you until you sell something. So people will say, well, the accountant says I don't need to worry about it. UBIT is basically the after deductions income. So if you've got property inside of a retirement account and it's got depreciation offsetting income, you're probably not going to hit UBIT. The moment that thing sells, remember the big red nuclear explosion? That's what your tax return looks like. So you can move the assets, you can move the pieces of those assets from an IRA, self-directed IRA, out. And a lot of syndicators, people doing deals, are finding out about this. And I will tell you that there will be lawsuits against syndicators that are not sharing this stuff, because investors, everybody likes to sue. It's just kind of, America, team, they will sue. And it's the smart ones are saying, okay, well, let me do what's right as a good fiduciary, right, Jim? Do what's right for your client, always. And you always do what's in your best interest of your investor. And if you're not telling them, I had a syndicator say, well, that's up to them. And I said, okay, never mind the lawsuit, but you're an asshole. You're not going to tell them because you can't be bothered, and they're going to have a 37% tax event. So to me, that's just the wrong thing. I don't have any tolerance for that.
We didn't take IRA money on our last deal. There's been a lot of issues with it, but this is huge. So so this is something you wanted to know about. If you don't know about it, now you do. So, sir.
When accessing the 50K credit line, is that interest rate similar to like a HELOC?
So the question is the interest rate on the $50,000 credit line, is it similar to a HELOC? The answer is you choose. You're the trustee. Typically it's prime plus one. It's up to you. The IRS gives you guidelines on normal and ordinary, and then they just leave it up to you. So typically people have it at about 6%.
And if I open one up, say, put like 10,000, do I automatically get access to the 50,000?
So it's 50% or 50,000, whichever is less, based on your account value.
Okay.
So you're just writing a check out of your money that's basically trapped.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Sir.
Is the UBIT tax on really any assets within that IRA? So let's say it's not real estate. Let's say, again, precious metal or even some other type of assets in that IRA. Once you retire, do you start drawing that money out? Is that when the tax is actually hit, or only when you sell something? That's really.
So good question. So the question is, what does UBIT apply to? When does it get tripped up? UBIT gets tripped up by any type of debt that's leveraging assets and any active business. Like if you put a sandwich franchise inside of a plan or an IRA, it would trip up unrelated business income tax. The tax happens regardless of what age you are, what's happening. If there's a net income, you're getting taxed. It has nothing to do with distributions.
I have two questions. You mentioned about a book by Tom somebody?
Tom Wheelwright.
Tom
Wheelwright, it's called Tax-Free Wealth. If you read one book on taxes, read that book.
Okay. And also, do you still invest in real estate?
Yeah, so personally, I'm a fan of not doing what I did. Usually, it has ended badly, but I lend out and I build.
Do you flip too?
No. For me, there are people that are super smart that flip well. I am not one of them. And one of the problems I have with flipping is that it generally triggers ordinary income taxes and self-employment taxes. So you do all this work, and if you're right, you're going to lose 60+% of your profits. To me, I want to go buy something and hold it and have appreciation and have tax-free wealth. I will, right? I think flipping is for somebody else that wants a job. So.
You have mentioned move your stuff to your eQRP. What's the transfer?
So you can transfer as much as you want. There's a setup cost to set up eQRP, and there's the annual flat fee. The transfers, the rollovers, none of that, and it's all free. So, and if a custodian charges you to transfer, we reimburse you. So we try to take all the friction and pain out of this.
What about establishing an eQRP after age 70 and a half?
So the question is, what about setting it up after age 70 and a half?
And have you done?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Because, yeah,
I was just wondering if once you're in the RMD world, you know.
No, because if you're an employee, if you go to work for someplace, you can't be excluded from a plan. And so that's what this is. It's part of the same code.
When I Googled eQRP, it said that it was
Actually, I found blue.
So QRP stands for Qualified Retirement Plan. It's an IRS term, so that is what it is. People ask QRP book is about qualified retirement plans. And so there's nothing made up except what the IRS makes up, and it's on their site. Like it's not made up. Sure. Great question. Are there any downsides? Who can imagine a downside when you have checkbook control of all your money? Seriously, if you're not self-responsible, if you're reckless, if you're Damion 26 with a Ferrari, don't do this. Because you'll probably lose your money. And there are reasons to have financial advisors and people that are part of your team that help guide you and navigate during crazy times. You're not necessarily going to have one. You're not required to have anybody other than you here. So it's dangerous if you're going to be crazy. Yeah.
So how do you make money? Just in the front end or continuously with us?
So the question is, how do we make money? So we set up a plan, we charge a set up fee, and then we have an annual fee. So depending on whether you have employees or whether you have individual, whether you have a micro plan, there's 2 fees, set up and annual, they're both flat. So we do that. We keep the plan in compliance. We build it, we keep it in compliance, and then y'all invest. And then we're there to support you.
Is that how we sign up?
What's that?
Is that how we sign up?
That's how you get information, and then you literally have to have a conversation, so we figure out if it's a good idea. So part of the idea here is that there's a lot of people, Tom Will right now talk about this a lot of people do their thing, and they think their thing is the only thing for everybody. And we're not like that. We'll talk you out of it if it's a bad idea. And so that conversation is where we figure out if this makes sense, if it's useful for you. Because,
What is that conversation?
when you text, we're going to reach out to you and see if you want to have that conversation with you. So, sure.
What would you advise a syndicator, what type of language to use to describe UBIT to potential investors? Because as a syndicator, we're not necessarily going to be licensed to give that type of advice. So, I guess kind of walking a fine line, what is okay to say legally versus what should we not go to at that point?
So the question is, how do you share this? How do you do it legally? How do you do it appropriately, ethically? You're not an attorney, you're not an accountant. You want people to be educated. You give them a copy of the book.
Okay.
So, if you had, so I brought a book for everybody. I'm also willing to, if you go to QRPbook.com, you can get anybody you want a copy of the book. I will send you 50 books for all your investors on me to educate them. Say, look, this is really important information. I want to share something with you. Please dig in. That book is full of data and readability that will enlighten people. So just take the IRS's word for it. It's in the book.
Sure.
And let me help you.
Okay.
Who else has it? Yes.
So if I have some cash and I'm about to invest in a property, should I be depositing it into an eQRP first and then purchasing it?
So the question is, if I have cash and I want to buy a property, should I put it into an eQRP before I do it? It depends. And it depends on what kind of property. So I would never hold a long-term rental property inside of a plan because you're going to lose the depreciation. I love having syndications or short-term holds because they're going to result in a taxable event very, very quickly.
Well, if it's let's say it's a primary residence for my child.
Okay, so that's a great question. So the question is it maybe a primary residence for a child? There are certain things you can't do. There are disqualified transactions. And so that's part of what we do, provide the guidance and the compliance. So you can't invest or use assets for you or for a child or for a parent. So as long as you're outside of what's, IRS is really weird. They tell you what you can't do. They hardly ever tell you what you can't do. So you go, all right, well, I'm not doing A, B, or C, and I'm not investing with so-and-so, and it's not a beach house for the summer. Good. But literally, that's what it is. And if you have a question, that's why you have a team. So there's a lot of people that sell stuff, and they give you something, and then they say, good luck, go to the next transaction. Our top 2 values are self-responsibility and relationships. So part of what you're getting in any form, whether you do business with us or not, is you have a team member. So if you need help, I don't care if you buy anything from us or not, call me, I'll give you guidance. So that's the way we operate so that you don't buy a property for your child and get disqualified. Make sense? Anybody else? Ma'am?
Yeah, you mentioned that this 10-year limit to tax return or get a bill on the Roth. So what happens at the end of the 10 years? Do you reinvest it or move it? How do you handle that?
So on the changes with the 401k system, for inherited 10 years. So basically what's happening, it used to be that if you inherited a retirement account, you could keep it and keep it growing and then spend it over the rest of your life. You have to take out a percentage of it. What's going to happen effective December 31st, if you inherit something, you've got to take all the money out of the retirement account within 10 years. If you have money in it at the end of 10 years, the way it's written, you're going to have to pull the balance of it out, no more retirement account. So they're basically just closing it off because they want to force that money out of that tax shelter into the coffers of the government and put it back into the taxable status. You can reinvest it just not inside the retirement account after 10 years. This is the pending legislation. Anybody else? Sure.
As you were saying, a lot of people view 401k accounts or IRAs as more of a for retirement, obviously, and somewhat of a guarantee. How would you get those people comfortable with borrowing against it, obviously exposing themselves to risk?
So the question is, if I understand you right, how do you get people comfortable with borrowing against their money?
Against more of a retirement plan that they're saving for the future.
So in general, I don't encourage people to go borrow against this unless they're going to do something that's like a disqualified transaction and they wanted to do it where you want to buy a rental property. So maybe you want to buy a rental house. That's good to own personally or in your own entity. It's not necessarily good to hold in a retirement account. Then you borrow $50,000 out, use that as your down payment. So there's ways to use these together and they make sense. This is where you have to, it kind of depends. Anybody else? One more.
So you use the money as a down payment to purchase a property, but then at some point you transfer it out of your account and you put it in an LLC or something like that, you're not going to hold it long term in that account?
So is the question that so the $50,000 on the loan,
Yeah.
It's a personal loan to you?
Yes.
And so you're going to have the $50,000 in your account, your personal account. What you do with it at that point is up to you.
Okay.
And then you just have to pay it back within 5 years.
You just pay it back, okay, I understand.
Yeah, you just pay it back within 5 years. One of the reasons I use gold is because you can actually physically take possession of gold if you have an eQRP. You can't do that with an IRA. So if you want to use tax-deferred money to buy gold, physical gold, you can do that. To me, that's like the government saying, I'm going to pay a third of your gold and you get to keep it. So it's a cool benefit if you like gold. You like gold right now. Anybody else? One more.
The grandfathering that you're talking about, for inherited IRA, are you saying that are you taxing that inherited IRA? So it's like, even if you're reliant, you use this as a estate planning, you cannot share your debt come out of their
Yeah, so
that's the plan, and how certain is that?
So the changes were that you can keep you can inherit something. The new rule is, it passed Congress, I think unanimously, or pretty close. It's going to become law, is my guess, I'm betting. That rule, effective December 31st, if somebody dies after New Year's, then whoever inherits the account has to withdraw it within 10 years. So it's one of those weird things. Like when I planned this, it was 10 years before my dad died. It's hard to plan something in 6 months, but I just wanted you guys to have that information because that is a major shift. There's also a huge shift that is going to allow 401ks to buy annuities, which is a big difference. It was pushed by the insurance industry, and so you're going to see a lot more annuity type of guaranteed income inside of plans. Whether that's good or bad, kind of depends on what you think of annuities. Maybe it's good, it creates predictability. But I'll also keep anybody that's on our list, if you opt in, as those things change, we'll let you know, so you can plan around it for a little more.
So if you have everything in a Roth IRA now, can you transfer that over?
You're going to end on that? No, it's okay. Thank you. It's a good question. If you have everything in a Roth IRA, it is stuck as a Roth IRA. Doesn't mean it's not useful because it's still a Roth IRA. So you just don't want to use leverage. You don't want to use that money to invest in his syndication because there's going to be leverage there. So do other things with it. You just right now you can't move it over. you guys, my time is up. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. All right, what do you guys think? I think that was really helpful. Amy, did you share any info where they can contact you for questions or anything? Do they already have your info?
This is the best place, you guys. If you want to opt in there, I'm going to be here all day too, and I've got cards. TotalControlFinancial.com is the website. TotalControlFinancial.com. There's a phone number on the book too.